Okay, episode 4.
Cool.
We're here with a very special guest. We'll let you introduce yourself and maybe tell us what you do and how long you've been doing it, whatever.
Okay, my name is Peter Renn, and I am co-founder of the Canadian Paranormal Foundation. I am a what am I? I'm an author. Sorry, long day. I'm an author. I'm a producer on the YouTube show We Want to Believe. I have 27 years experience in the field.
Awesome.
I originate from the UK. I've lived in Australia, New Zealand, which I've investigated as well.
Nice.
I am a documenting. Sorry, pardon. Sorry, guys.
Still working.
I'm a documenting investigator for an ordained exorcist in Washington State as well.
Nice.
And I think that's it.
Are you sure?
There must be going along there anyway.
Oh, that's cool though. You get to do all that stuff.
Thanks for jumping on with us, buddy. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
No worries. Nice to talk to you guys again.
Yeah.
So, if you investigated all those places, where would you say the best place you've been to so far for activity? Anywhere in the world you've been?
Countries. Well, I've investigated in probably about 7 or 8 different countries.
Wow.
Probably everyone's going to say England because like the historical, like Britain and stuff like that. But I kind of disagree. Like the most activity, like wow moments that I've had is actually in Australia. There's a couple of places on the like 2 hours north of Melbourne, like little ghost towns and stuff like that. And I spent a lot of time there with a friend of mine that I was traveling with at the time as well. And it was what was an old mining town basically became like a vacant ghost town. And we spent a week there just investigating like various little plots and stuff like that. And the activity was absolutely incredible. Like there was chairs moving and stuff like that, like stuff that you people say that they've seen and stuff like that, but it was just honestly you'll be having like EVP sessions, and like the typical question that you ask during an EVP session is give us a sign of your presence, and then we'll be sitting there and all of a sudden the freaking chair would just go
oh god.
Like,
Wow. Yeah.
There's someone definitely here then.
I haven't experienced anything like that yet.
That would have been the end of the investigation for me. I would have been
like bolting out the door kind of thing. But when I was living in the UK, I didn't really make much of the opportunity of the places I had. You've got these historic locations and stuff like that, and things like that always under your doorstep. But I didn't really like. I investigated a few castles and stuff like that. I got to a few historic locations, but like Britain itself, like the UK, is just prime location for historical sites.
Oh,
and now,
absolutely.
Now I live like in BC. I look back and I'm like, there's just nothing here historically. And it's not even half of it. And you can testify yourself. Like over in the East Coast, you've got more. There's richer historical artifacts there than what there is in BC, and it's just half of the fun in what we do is reliving those steps of the past when we actually go into these locations. It's not just the thrill of the chase or anything like that. It's actually finding something.
You got
well, in the English and
French.
French. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, buddy.
No.
When the English and French left Britain and France, they came here, right? So they brought a lot of their culture with them, their stories and their folklore and everything else, and it just kind of spread all through Nova Scotia and the Maritimes, right? So.
Yeah, I'd be a great trigger object if I ever went over to the East Coast, wouldn't
I? I'd love to take you to Lewisburg.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We could just watch Pete getting thrown across the room.
Yeah. So what's BC like? What's it like for investigative places and stuff? Is that you guys seem to be busy all the time?
Well, when I first arrived in BC, it was about 13 years ago when I took over the Vancouver Paranormal Society. At that time, there wasn't a lot of teams out here. And then over about 4 or 5 years, it just got swamped with different teams starting and stuff like that. And the issue was, and it still is now, is the fact that there's a lot of teams that are very disrespectful, and they don't have a very good rapport with the site owners or anything like that in regard to the way that they treat them and that kind of thing. So it's a bit stagnant now. Like most of the places you can't get into because some other teams have used it and abused it and stuff like that. There are a couple of gems hidden away, but everyone kind of hides them in their back pocket kind of thing, and they don't really want to let other teams know about it in case the same thing kind of happens to them.
Yeah, for sure.
So in relation to Nova Scotia, well, what I've seen of Toronto as well is the fact that there is some historical places, but it's not as rich as what it is on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Not by far.
Yeah.
Like no soon as buildings goes up here, they knock them back down again. And
Yeah.
Yeah, see, we worry about that around here too, right? We're always nervous that someone's going to go in and go to a historical spot and kind of ruin it for everybody else who wants to get in there and do an investigation and stuff, right? There's not very many teams around here. Like on Cape Breton alone, I only know of like 2, maybe 3, and there could be some offshoots, but we're not sure. I think we're definitely the biggest on the island, without a doubt. But Nova Scotia has a few bigger teams too, and a couple that we work with, and a couple that we don't. And I know what you mean by stagnant though. Like once you get into, I find location, like Lewisburg, you could do 1,000 times.
Oh,
but there's other spots you can only do like once or twice, because once you've done them, it's hard to get back in and do them again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
that's the thing.
So I mean, you can spend all kinds of time at all these spots, but it's just hard to get into them. Once you get in there once, they kind of don't really say, "Oh, come on back next weekend and the week after and the week after and the week."
Yeah, it's like when I started this in the UK, a lot of the sites were heritage sites, and they were independently funded, like what we call non-profit societies out here. And the only approach that I had into getting to these locations was fundraising. So I would, for example, I did a lot of fundraising for like cancer research in the UK and stuff like that. And that was the only way potentially you could wean them in to letting you in there. And then after, and during that investigation, you invite them out, and it's a kind of, kissing babies and shaking hands kind of session, because you're trying to build a good rapport with them. And then at the end of it, you're like, do you think that there'll be any chance that we can come back? And by then you've already, you sweetened them up, and they're ready to come back, sort of thing. But that's generally what we do here. But in the UK, it was that was the only way we can get into those sites, and not many people do that now. Not even in the UK. They go to their like pubs and stuff like that. They do, but no one's allowed in castles and stuff. Especially the places that I had access to as well.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So many cool spots over there.
Yeah. We volunteer a lot around here through the organizations, right? So that's how we, if they let us in, we'll always say to them, do you want to do a fundraiser? We don't fundraise for cancer, we fundraise for the actual committees or buildings that we're in, whatever society and stuff. Yeah, so we do that, right? I mean, we love that. We built tons of relationships just by doing that. I don't mind. I love volunteering. I love meeting the public and having them come in and see what we do, and they get the bug, and then they're out buying stuff, and then
Pete, do you guys do a lot of like public events and stuff like that out there, or?
We do, like when I was a part of Vancouver Paranormal Society, when I was running Vancouver Paranormal Society, that was kind of our thing. We did a lot of fundraising and public presentations and stuff like that. But then after about doing that, after about 5 years, there really, in all honesty, there wasn't any reward in it. Like we'd go like that extra mile. We'd go to these places and do presentations in libraries and stuff like that, and then you'll get the odd investigation here and there. But without sounding selfish, we do it to gain, to potentially get our feet into other doors. Yeah. And there wasn't anything like there was nothing that really ever came out of it. So we kind of steered away from it. We still do a bit of fundraising for particular venues in Surrey, they do in Surrey, BC. There's an old farm there as well, which they do annual presentations and stuff like that. But besides that, everyone does it here now as well. Like I started it here, I was the first one to do it, and now everyone does it. It's just
yeah.
stagnant.
Loses its luster.
It does.
Yeah.
We still volunteer. We were volunteering at the Monsters Museum in Glace Bay in Lewisburg. We do their events in the summertime for them, and we were doing every Thursday night at the St. Patrick's Church. They have a haunted walk in the north end of Sydney.
Yeah.
We'd show up for about half an hour, Jason, set up all of our gear
like
and play some EVPs.
Yeah.
It was great. Like we didn't mind doing it at all.
Yeah,
it's lots of fun. And like I said, around here, there's so many people into it that you always get like really good guests that show up, and they're there because they want to be there for the ghosts. They're not necessarily just showing up because their husband dragged them along or their wife dragged them along, stuff like that, right? So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. So Pete, I know my wife's cousin lives in Port Moody, and I know you guys have done a couple of investigations there. I have a cousin who lives she lives on Vancouver Island, Campbell's River, maybe.
Oh yeah, northern Vancouver Island. Yeah, I know.
So anyway, I keep looking at the logo behind you with the Believe in the Bigfoot, and it takes me to a story that her husband's friend and his father were out hunting, and I guess they were in I don't know, like a gravel pit or a quarry, whatever you call it, and they saw a Bigfoot, and you cannot convince them that it was not a Bigfoot. Like
really?
Yeah, they're absolutely 100% sure that what they saw was a Bigfoot.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Pete? Are you a believer? Like the sign behind my head? Because I picked this just for you, because you're in BC.
There you go. I don't know. I don't honestly at the moment. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not one of these people that believe it when they see it, kind of thing. But I kind of find it hard to believe that after this amount of time that there's been, people tracks and stuff, there's Bigfoot tracks and stuff like that. And there's certain characteristics to their footprints and stuff like that that makes them different to the other. But how do they know that? I mean, like, honestly, like they, the characteristics, they say that there's, the foot has like an indent, like halfway through.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how do we know that? Did you physically grab Bigfoot's leg? And
they had nothing to go by, right?
Yeah.
So like,
and they've never found a body. And
they haven't, and
no,
you never say never in this field, like in the paranormal field as well. Like my belief system in regard to the paranormal, like with spirits and ghosts and stuff like that, has changed so much over the last 20 odd years. But in regard to stuff like that, there really hasn't been any, and I'm probably going to get shot down from this from people that I work with, but there's really been no, that field hasn't really evolved. Like they're still gauging the evidence from that video that was shot in the 1960s of the guy dressed up in a suit. And and they're picking up footprints and stuff like that, and fair enough, it's like a lot of these people have heard strange noises and stuff like that, but it could be almost anything.
Did you ever hear a fox scream?
I've heard I have. It sounds like
a woman screaming in the woods. Like you would think it was a woman lost in the woods.
Yeah, that's what when I grew up in Surrey in England, we used to have foxes living in the back of our garden. A lot of it's when they're mating as well, when they're on heat. Like the scream, it sounds like a woman. You would wake up in the morning, like, what the hell's getting murdered out in my back garden?
Yeah, that's same with rabbits. I remember where I grew up, not far from Sydney here, and one night I was outside. I think I was having a smoke or something. It was around midnight, and I hear something. It sounds like a baby crying up in the woods. And I'm probably, 20 or 21. So I go in and I wake my father up because I'm like, oh my God, there's a baby in the woods. So I didn't know what a rabbit sounded like. But anyway, I went in and woke my dad up. Was he ever pissed off? When I woke up, he looked at me, he's like, you idiot, that was a rabbit. I was like, oh, well, now I know what a rabbit sounds like. Rabbit in distress sounds like a baby crying.
So if you're not a believer in Bigfoot, what about aliens? I seen aliens on your backdrop there too.
I believe in UFOs. I don't know whether it's I don't believe. I say I don't believe. There's been no there's been credible, and I've seen as well things that don't make sense in the sky. And there's been, numerous sightings that since day dot, since photography and that kind of thing in regard to what goes on up above. I don't know whether to believe in the kind of that character that everyone develops with the guy with the fat head and stuff like that. Because everyone, but then there could be some credibility to it because a lot of people's accounts have had. Have had similar, they've identified a similar thing, but unless they're all smelling the same bullshit.
Yeah.
Don't you find it crazy though that the Pentagon released all that footage like last year and people looked at it and went, yeah, right on. And they didn't even care because of COVID and everything else that was going on in the world.
Yeah.
They're just like, whatever, it's aliens, cool. What's
next? We already knew that was there. Yeah.
But then you think about like space and how space is like infinity. It's never been gauged how big it is. It just goes on forever. To turn around and say that we're the only beings that exist is kind of a bit naive in that respect because there could be anything out there, right? And we're just a little grain in the sand kind of thing.
Well, the craziest experience I had was I was laying on my couch one night. I got a big picture window. It was about 3:00 in the morning. It was foggy. It was in the winter. And I seen this light come across the roof of the neighbor's house. And it wasn't enough where I could get on a ladder and touch it. It was up in the sky, but it hovered there. And then it shot from left to right so fast that it couldn't have been a flashlight. There was no beam coming from the ground. It couldn't have been anything like that. And then it kind of came more towards my house. And then it took off faster than anything I've ever seen before. It was like I blinked and it was gone. But you could see it just shoot across the sky. And from that point that I seen that, I was like, that's got to be something. There's no way that you couldn't make that happen. Because if it was fog, it was someone on the ground with a flashlight, you'd see the beam from the flashlight as they were moving it around, right?
Yeah.
It was the craziest thing I've ever seen for the aliens, I guess, or aliens, whatever you want to call them.
I had a similar one when I was about 13, 14, and this is before drones, like to get drones out the window and stuff like that. There was no drones around or anything like that. I lived by an old by a rural airfield space, and it was probably about a mile away from my house. And every so often you see helicopters and stuff like that, like doing test flights, and the odd heritage plane flying over, like a Spitfire, whenever there's like air shows and stuff like that. And it was about 3:00 in the afternoon, and we went down to the side of the golf course and to smoke some weed, of course. And we're all sitting on the bank, and we're just talking to each other, and there was me and my buddies there and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden we looked up at the sky, and there was just this black dot in the sky, and it wasn't moving. It wasn't moving around or anything like that. And this is like, I think it's about 3:00 in the afternoon, and it just stayed there. And we were just looking at it, and we were like, well, it looks like it could possibly be like a helicopter or something like that, or a plane coming towards us in the distance. And we were there for like probably about 20, 25 minutes, and we just looked at this dot in the sky. And there were, I think it was about three or four of us there at the time. And then all of a sudden, the dot dropped down as if it was dropping down to Earth, and then just went straight up and disappeared in the sky. I mean fast, like faster than any plane or anything like that. And it just disappeared, and we were like, oh.
Oh wow, that was different.
Of course, in an English accent as well. Oh boy.
Well, holy shit! Look
and
at
then
that.
you all went out for fish and chips wrapped in newspaper.
We all watched Mary Poppins after.
No, y'all watched Most Haunted.
Yeah.
Are you sure it wasn't Mary Poppins in the sky?
Oh, yeah. Well, we had a couple of toads from a couple of joints, so it could have been almost anything.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So what was it like writing this? Can you see it? Maybe you can't see it. It's your book.
It's fading in and out.
Yeah.
It's a ghost book. It's translucent.
Yeah. It's full of spirits. You can't even see it.
It's the real deal.
It comes with its free spirit.
Yeah. It reads itself in EVP.
Chapter 1. It was kind of I never really wanted to write a book. It was just I say that it was always in the back of my mind, but I never really had the motivation to actually sit down and write a book. And then we were having both me and Jason Hewitt. We were having a podcast interview with a woman called Shannon who works for Beyond the Fray Publishing, who published a book. And she's like, you know, the same old stories you get everywhere you go. It's like, tell us some of your famous ghost stories and stuff like that. So I spun off a couple, and I went into detail about that one of the places I went to in Australia, and Warwick Castle in England as well. And there's a couple of other places as well. And she's like, you should write a book. And I'm like, nah, get out of here. I don't want to write a book. I haven't got time for it or anything like that. And then we went away, and then a couple of days later, Jason phones me up and says, you should really think about writing a book. I said, Jason, I have no time. I work 50, 60 hours a week at the moment, flat out. I don't physically have time. He's like, I'll write your book, and you can just come around my house once a week, and you can sit there and talk, tell me all your stories, tell me all about your life and stuff like that, and I'll write it for you. So he started off, he did, and then I helped him out with it as well. And then we got to where we are now.
So how did you meet him?
I moved to Kamloops, which is geographically is about 4 hours north of Vancouver. So we're in what is called the interior of British Columbia. And I moved here and with Vancouver Paranormal Society, and I was doing a couple of local things here as well. And he reached out to me just before I had my liver transplant. And there was a lot of back and forth. And then I went away. Then I came back, and then we joined up together, and we did a couple of investigations together. And we met. There was a guy in Merritt, which is 40 minutes from here, who was a so-called producer, and he said, I've got this idea that I want to run past you and stuff like that. And it was just it's all smoke and mirrors in what he was describing and stuff like that. And I'm not interested in TV, honestly. Believe it or not, we've got the YouTube show and stuff like that. That kind of thing doesn't really float my boat. And then we were going to do a show, a documentary promo for his friend John. John, and we did the show, and they said, well, how would you feel about doing a few more? And I said, well, the only way that we would do the shows if we actually filmed what we filmed was raw. It wasn't, I don't want any theatre, I don't want any drama or anything like that. If we go out to an investigation, we sit there for 8 hours and we get absolutely nothing, that's what I want us to film.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I want to go into a bit more of the methodology of what we do and that kind of thing. But I don't want, all of a sudden you've got thunder and lightning going on in the background and stuff like that. And then, things are floating around the room because of, effects and stuff like that. I want to remove myself from that, that Hollywood drama kind of thing. And It's been good.
The show's good.
It is. And it started off, it's weird because the places that we've gone and we've investigated, you don't notice that there's cameras around because the guys that are filming are friends of ours. So it's just a guy walking around, with a camera doing what we do and stuff like that. And it's just, he's just filming what we're doing. And then, then after when we do interviews, you just sit down for an hour afterwards and just go through what exactly happened during the investigation, like a debrief, and then they edit it and just put it into the show. So it's pretty, awesome. It's pretty streamlined in what we do. It's not, it's not that we have to sit there and put makeup on and stuff like that. It's great.
Yeah.
You don't get possessed or anything like that.
No. The demons don't even come into the equation. I'm waiting for that moment. That'd be fun.
So do you think any shows on TV now are even remotely legit, or do you believe they're all Do you think Zach ever caught actual evidence, or do you think everything is just smoke and mirrors with that show?
Zach Bilbo Baggins has made an absolute fortune in entertaining people.
Mm-hmm.
And he has developed his craft better than what Taps has, or Ghost Hunters have, or any other show that was on TV, because he's made that show entertaining. Like, you've got it's like you've got like shows like Ghost Hunters and stuff like that become so like stagnant, and like they've come back, but they're doing the same crap with Zach Baggins. He goes into a place and he's excited all the time. You know, he has that. It's entertainment. That's what I watch TV for. And you know, the evidence that they show, you just take with a grain of salt. Like, he gets possessed every week and stuff like that. But it's funny. It makes me laugh. But more with the shows like Ghost Hunters and all the other shows that have come out, the 50,000 other shows that have come out as well, there's no validity to it, because if you filmed a typical investigation, you're going to have 8 hours of nothing. You're just going to have 8 hours of you sit in the room listening to your stomach growl.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. We're at 8:45.
What?
We're at 8:45 now.
Oh, okay. All right then. What do you think we're talking to, Pete? Do you think it's spirits? Do you think it's multi-universe? Do you think it's, I don't know, parallel universe? What do you think it is?
I think that 95% of the things that we try and talk to are residual. I think that we are talking to something that's just been played over and over again in time. There is the 5% of the time where you get that that credible piece of evidence in regard to that intelligent response back, where that's where my belief system kind of splits in the road there. I've had things before where it's led me to believe that there's a parallel universe in regard to some of the responses I had and stuff like that. And I've also had particular intelligent responses back from the spirit that was supposed to have been there. So it could be one or two things. It could be a parallel universe of someone that's looking in, or it could be someone actually dead that is there and they're communicating with us somehow. So there's different. I guess it's a different belief system in regard to a lot of it, but most of it is. Most of it is interpreted as residual, kind of a timestamp in that respect.
Okay.
We got 10 minutes.
So some people claim that they hear their names being called and they hear their, voices and stuff, right? If you figure in parallel universes, there's people ghost hunting and it's us that's talking to them, and they're just picking up on our everyday life and they're saying things and you're like, what did you say? And then all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, you got to hear this EVP I got. It's some British guy.
He said his name is Pete.
Yeah, it's some British guy named Pete.
Yeah, someone said pull my finger in an English accent.
I don't know. There's so much. Like, I was watching a thing the other night with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he was talking about a case that he had with a lady who said she had a out-of-body experience. She was like, you know what I mean, when you die and you come back, sort of thing.
Yep.
And she said when her heart stopped, she was sitting in a room, and her dead father sat up and started talking to her. So Neil deGrasse Tyson said to her, well, what kind of questions were you asking him? And she was like, well, I asked, were you happy? And I asked, just sort of stuff like that. Like, how's my relative? Are my ancestors there? And he said, don't ask those questions anymore. If that ever happens, he said, you could really do a decent, and this is a scientist who doesn't believe in this at all. He said, to do a great scientific experiment, why not start asking questions like, what's the temperature there? Are you wearing clothes? Where did you get your clothes? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is there weather? Does it rain? Does it snow? Because he said, if you want science to help, in the paranormal field, you have to start asking the questions that the scientists want to hear, not just, knock on the wall, make a noise, can what did you do in your past life? He said, start asking like, decent questions and logging them and seeing if you can actually get answers to what's the temperature, what's the weather like, what's the, you know what I mean? Is there day and night? Is there seasons, that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah,
Is there a Tim Hortons there?
Yeah.
I hope so.
I know.
I definitely came home when I moved to Canada. That's for sure. I honestly, I don't ever believe that science would ever acknowledge what we do as paranormal investigators in that respect, in any of the realms of the paranormal, because we can't. There's no consistency in what we do. There's no formula in producing a ghost of how to. There's no formula in actually getting a ghost in front of you or anything like that. We don't know how to gauge it. Well, like we basically work in a field where we're unable to gauge what's there.
Yeah.
So until we find out how to gauge whatever's out there, there's no way of controlling it in that respect.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, every team does their own thing too, right? Like, some teams will use different equipment and they'll say other equipment's no good. Some teams will use voice recorders, some will use spirit boxes, some will use, like you said, there's no set rules for what we do. Everybody just kind of does their own thing.
No, there isn't at all. I mean, when I look at when I first started in comparison to what I do now, obviously the equipment's a lot more sophisticated. But I found, and we spoke about this the other day, I found when I first came to Canada, I started to overcomplicate what I was doing in the respect of getting all these gadgets, spending an absolute fortune on this and that, where that it's just a microchip inside of a box that nothing can control that apart from what's buried in that microchip. So it's what we need to get back to in order to control what's going on there.
Yeah. How are we for time, Jay?
We have 5 minutes left.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
All right. So I have to sneak this one in. If the Calgary Flames folded tomorrow and there was no team, would you cheer for Vancouver or Edmonton? That's the only two teams you can pick from.
No. Pete, you can always join the Habs fan base, buddy.
I would probably, I would probably go further east with my support base. I don't think I'd ever have it in my heart to support the Canucks. You don't experience what I get here with the Canucks fans and stuff like that. They're a bunch of snobs, and
hey,
no, not you. You're probably the only Canucks fan in Nova Scotia, but
there's two of us. I know two of us.
Really?
That's it. There's two.
Never once a year and have a special handshake.
It would be the most hilarious Stanley Cup parade down Charles Street in Sydney. Just one other guy banging a pot.
Yeah, and the rest of us laughing and pointing.
Yeah, throwing stones.
If the Canucks folded tomorrow and I had to pick between Calgary and Edmonton, I'd quit and I'd just start watching cricket.
Yeah.
I'd give up hockey.
As long as you don't pick the Toronto Maple Leafs, Pete, we're good.
No. There's a bit of a story about the Calgary Flames, because like back in England, we used to like me and my friends, we used to follow hockey. And our local team was the Guildford Flames, and they were exactly the same jerseys as the Flames, but instead of the C, it was a G.
Okay.
So when I first came to Canada, I actually arrived in Calgary, and it kind of took off after that because it's to do with my favourite team back home as well. So it was. Then I went away and came back and I moved to BC, but it's always been the Calgary Flames. It's cool. I do follow them, don't get me wrong, but I'm not, it's not in my DNA like Canadians.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what's up next for you, Pete? Let everybody know where you're going to be and where they can reach you and where they can find your stuff.
So we've got coming up in 2 weeks' time, because we've got the restrictions lifting up. We are filming an episode. Well, we're actually doing an investigation in actually my new house. We're going to do an episode on haunted objects. So we've got there's a series of objects that have been sent to me from people up and down BC. We're going to set up controlled investigations and stuff like that, and just film it as well. We're going to do various experiments, like we're going to try the Singapore experiment, scrying. We're even going to try a seance and stuff like that, just around these objects to see whether we've got anything, you know, if anything comes of the so-called haunted objects you see on TV.
That'd be cool.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
that's
different.
awesome.
In regard to books and stuff like that, we've just signed a contract with Beyond the Fray Publishing. We've started another 2 books that are due to, the deadline for that is mid part of 2022, which obviously you guys are a part of one of them as well. So busy time.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool.
So thanks, Pete. This has been awesome. So if we do another one, do you think we can get Jay on board or what?
He won't. No, I'm kidding. Of course he will.
Tell him to get off the page then.
Yeah, because we had a pretty good chat there a couple days back, and it was great to talk to you guys, and it's great to have you on here, and it was great to actually be able to talk to you, because we've just been sending, you know, funny memes and just comment on the Facebook page, right?
Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, NSYNC. Well, I usually send the NSYNC ones, and Pete sends the Backstreet Boys one.
Shouldn't you be a One Direction fan being from England?
No comment. No comment. Yeah, awesome. Anyway, boys,
all right.
we got a little less than a minute. So anyway,
okay,
we'll sign off here.
well, thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Pete.
Guys. Take it
Appreciate
easy.
it, buddy.
All right.
Cheers.
Thanks,
We'll
buddy.
be talking to you.
Bye.
Take care, guys. All right.